University for the death of law student Khensani Maseko. The 23-year-old was laid to rest at the Nasrec Memorial Park Cemetery in the south of Johannesburg. At a moving tribute, family, friends, peers and political figures remembered the selfless young fighter. She hung herself last Friday at her East Rand home after she was raped earlier this year.
A rising star plucked prematurely from the skies. Khensani Maseko dreamed big. An engaging personality, she captivated people. And filled numerous leadership roles. But her most memorable being an advocate for the voiceless, a role she clung to until her death.
This is not death, but this is a protest. She is saying to all of us here, no one deserves to be raped. In trying to escape the trauma that she was facing, you ask yourself, what wrong are we doing?
Even in death, her voice still resonates. But how many more must die before the war to end violence against women and children is won?
And I'm sure nothing has prepared you to bury your child. We need to change this country. We need to change this world. Because it cannot be that when a parent gives birth to a female child, they must simultaneously prepare for her death.
I don't know why boys are not mad about what other boys and men do. Because it's us that we must be really mad about it. Until we get mad about it, the matter won't be resolved.
Damning allegations were also made against Rhodes University and Grahamstown Police.
Rhodes University are the biggest hypocrites. When the students go to the police stations to open the cases, the university goes to bribe the police. The lives of black women and children have gone beyond being disrespected. We are dehumanized.
Lalakahle Ngamane, Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Nasrec.
Well, our reporter Gillian Pillay was at Khensani Maseko's funeral today, and she's going to take us through the events that unfolded. Good evening to you, Gillian. A really moving tribute. I mean, you can see from the package that you gave us today, and really all the speakers not holding back about what they felt about such a bright young life snuffed out too soon.
Yeah, no, you know, sitting in an audience like that on this Women's Day, 24 years on, what is there to celebrate? That was your question earlier. How can we celebrate when we see so much gender violence in the country, that yet another victim, yet another person has died at the hands of such brutality? And to sit in an audience like that and hear an SRC president, you know, making an impassioned plea, asking, should we again see a woman give birth to a girl just to bury her? It's become almost, you know, we've almost become immune to it.
Yeah.
But it's a story like this that's actually stood out, Bongani, you know. You couldn't help but be moved to be part of the proceedings today.
And in a sense, when you say in your piece that her voice still resonates, and there's this idea that she will now speak powerfully, but she'll speak from her grave.
Yeah, no, you know, many people spoke about that her death wasn't a death as such. It was a protest. Profound if you think about it. That she had to give herself up so that we could take notice of this thing that is basically burdening women, that we are not safe. We can't walk the streets. We're seeing interpartner rape. Many people don't think it's prevalent, but there are high levels of this. It's just we don't talk about it. It's another silent shame like depression, you know, an assassinator of the mind, Bongani.
So I thought it was particularly telling that the SRC president put at least raised a lot of questions. Really the idea of how many more young women must die in the face of really what seems like now an onslaught against our women in this country.
I think we needed that kind of comments coming from the podium today. Yes, we celebrated the selfless leader, but we also needed to say something beyond today's service. Where do we go from here? What are we going to do? Are we going to keep attending funerals like this? Are we going to keep talking about where the justice system isn't working? How many more countless victims are falling victim to this kind of incidents? And that is the kind of remarks that we did need to hear today, Bongani, about are we still going to be giving birth as women? And to be a woman sitting there, listening to that kind of remarks,
So the SRC president is calling for change in this country. I thought it was interesting that the police minister, Pillay, was calling on men to be mad about what's going on. He says there's not enough anger being expressed by men towards men who are perpetrators.
I cover these stories all the time, and I think we are targeting the wrong groups. We aren't abusing ourselves as women. We need to go back to men, and men who stand by and don't say anything. We need them to take a stand now. If you know of someone, do something about it. Don't idly sit back. And that's what Pillay was basically saying. We should be mad as men who are good men, so that this handful of men who are doing wrong, who are perpetuating these crimes, we can pull them down.
In recent times, the police minister has been making what you might call all the right noises. He's called on, for example, on officers to not send women back to their deaths when they come to police stations. And yet, from what we are hearing there today, the police were squarely at the center of the blame today in terms of just not being a place where women can come to tell their stories and feel that something's going to be done about it.
Bongani, we do these stories all the time. We know what's happening at the cold face of police stations. We know what's happening at the courts. We know that when a woman goes to report a rape, women themselves who are the police officers, what are they doing? They're asking women, what do you want us to do about your case? There's a lot happening at grassroots level that really needs to they need to be retrained. Just a lot of things need to change at grassroots level for the ordinary woman who does not have justice in her pocket.
And the university itself came in for some stick.
They came in for a lot of stick. EFF, using that platform to really talk about, lots of victims coming forward, but their cases aren't being reported. Allegations around that police are being bribed, allegations that particularly black women are the ones who are being denied justice.
Politicians, of course, will be politicians. The police minister had to say the right things. The EFF had to say things that they thought might appeal to the audience. What did the family say?
The family just said we should look at this young star, and we shouldn't let another young star be dimmed. We shouldn't let another light of a young star be dimmed. Celebrating this, selfless leader who did so much for many others, looking at the role that she played, but also looking at what more she could have done, but also saying, in death, her voice will resonate beyond the grave.
Who was the Khensani they knew?
I think the Khensani in me was the person who takes up these stories. This platform that we have is what Khensani would have done. Keep telling the stories of the person who doesn't have a voice, and that's what Khensani stood for. Voice for the voiceless.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Gillian, thank you very much for covering that for us. That was, of course, our SABC reporter, Gillian Pillay, who was at that funeral. And it's particularly sad to observe that, of course, Khensani Maseko was laid to her final resting place on this National Women's Day. Stay with us. We've got a lot more coming for you, looking at the major events of the day, and we'll also be trying to answer the question about where gender rights exist today in our society. You're watching The Full View.